Okay, but Brandon Klein, it's been so long. Last time I was in Michigan, you weren't. You were in California.
Oh, is that right?
Is that
yeah,
right?
I guess that is right. Yeah.
How long was your time in California? I was trying to think back, like 2-3 years, probably, right? Because
It was like a year and a half, and then I did
year and a
3
half.
months in New York, which most people don't even know I was there. But
okay.
yeah, I did 3 months in New York.
Why did you move to? Was it LA or was it a different part of Cali?
Yeah, it was Los Angeles. I was, I was doing podcasting as a producer in Michigan for a year, and then I don't know. I just got the itch to produce out there, but I hadn't gotten a job. But I still drove out there, so I drove there, and then a few months later, I ended up getting a job with a podcast network.
But why did you end up coming back eventually to Michigan? You missed
You
home.
know, there was. I don't know if it was as much of an emotion of missing as it was an emotion of wanting to like strive for a different way of living. Like when I went to LA and New York, I don't want to say I was ungrounded, but I was ungrounded. You know, like I needed to get meaning from excitement and from the next cool story.
Yeah.
Whereas now and a year and a half ago when I moved back, I think I was finally ready to marinate in the idea of stillness, slowness, not needing to contrive anything more than the moment. Michigan felt like the best place to do that. I also wanted to pursue a career as a mental health therapist. This is where I want to get licensed. My mom's a licensed clinical social worker. We've always talked about going to practice together. I have community here. So it just kind of became obvious.
It made sense to come back. What was your little period in New York? Can I ask too? Because I actually didn't know you were in New York, like you were saying. I thought in my mind, Michigan. That's where we met. You went to Cali, then you came back to Michigan.
Yeah, so I was in LA 7 months with the podcast network. Built a music venue in my loft as well while I was there. Then got laid off from that podcast network job. 3 weeks later, ended up getting a different podcast network job. But this one actually had an office in New York, but let you be remote. So I was remote for some time, and then I was like, let's go work out of their office. Like I like in person. So I ended up selling near everything. Went with a bag, got a short-term rental in Brooklyn, and then worked in Soho. And then 3 months later, they got rid of their office, and they're like, you're all remote. And so I'm like, I'm not going to pay for New York pricing right now and build a community here if I could work from Michigan. So I came back to Michigan, worked remote for them up until starting grad school, and then I left that job.
Okay. Hey, I miss Michigan, man. I can't lie.
What do you miss about it?
I miss, the people, of course. There's this thing that like Americans are like, they have, now that I'm back in Europe again or in Germany for soon to be 3 years. I think in April it's 3 years.
Wow.
There's something about just Americans or Michiganders, the kind of some of the niceties, even if they're superficial or even if they might not be meant, in the most sincere way all the time. There's a kind of, I don't know, just easiness in the way that people maybe get along, or of course there's a lot of tensions as well and everything.
A friend of mine said yesterday that there's nothing worse than compulsive niceties. Do you agree or disagree?
Compulsive niceties. I actually disagree. I think sometimes it's okay to have some kind of things you might do out of social guilt or something that then actually end up making society nicer, quote unquote, even if it's not, super authentic or something. But of course, I get what he's saying as well.
Yeah.
But once you're in a culture that has way less of those niceties, it's like, maybe there's actually a reason for them being there.
Yeah, maybe I need a little bit of social balm.
Yeah. Do you feel like people are much different? I've never lived in Cali or anything. I visited maybe once or twice when I was younger with my parents, so I don't really have a sense of the people or the culture there. Do you feel like people on the West Coast are noticeably different than maybe in Michigan?
Tell me if this is a cop-out answer, but I think you find the answer interesting because I don't think of people that way. Like it wasn't even like maybe they weren't and that's why I didn't, but like I don't think of it that way. To me, it's like, I don't know. Obviously, if you go somewhere and they're speaking a completely different language or their reality is so different than yours, yes, I think of people that way. But like in the grand scheme of things, like, I don't know, the kind of person I am, people open up to me about all sorts of kinds of things, and so I've heard a lot of shit, so I don't know. Like I've been with really nice people, really not nice people. I've heard of people who have dealt with abuse. I've heard of people who have had the best lives ever. So I don't know, everywhere I've been, I've kind of just like, I've never thought of them as a product of that place. And I've thought of them as just like them. And I'm sure that leads to gaps in my awareness as well because of that bias of thinking. But, and a lot of the LA people, keep in mind, are transplants. They're transplants for people wanting to, so they came from all over. But the people I met in LA were just the sweetest people in the world because, I had that music venue in my loft. And the kind of people you're attracting by having a music venue in a loft with no following and you're making them almond flour pancakes is going to be like really wholesome, sweet people who just want adult play dates. So I don't know if I was getting your prototypical LA acolyte out there anyway. But no, I'm sure a place shapes people to a certain degree. It does. But I kind of just think, the person's the person.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you find any kind of person, or you'll find a breadth of people basically anywhere you go. Speaking of the loft, I just saw over the recent couple weeks that you've been now teaching DMT too with Michael, right? Dance meditation technique.
Yeah. We like to clarify it with the full words first.
I had Michael on a couple weeks back, and like the way we started the conversation was like, I right away asked something about DMT, but then I remembered I have to clarify for people who don't know, we're talking about dance meditation technique, not the drug. But I went to DMT. I want to say at least 2, 3, maybe 4 times when I was in Michigan. I don't think we ever got the chance to be there together. Am I?
No, we didn't.
Yeah, but now you're teaching it. What's that like, or how did that even come about? If you want to talk about that, I just thought it was really interesting to see you now kind of take on the role of instructor in this like super. It's hard to describe to someone who doesn't know what it is. At least for me, maybe you can do a better job.
Well, we're working to get better at it. It's still a bit elusive, but I just actually taught my second class yesterday, so this is good timing coming off the buzz of teaching. I've been taking that class on and off because I was out of town, but I've been taking it for the past 8 years. I had never done anything like it. I'd never done any dance growing up, no choreographed dance. So it's different because it was free form movement. I'd never taken a class where I was asked to make nonsensical sound. This class was immediately different in that it was 2 hours and not 1 hour. A lot of people even consider 1 hour to be long for a quote wellness class. So you're almost starting to look at mini retreat immersion territory. But I remember being instantly struck with how he assumed the role of host. This wasn't this wasn't like, hey, come to an event, like lay out your mat, and it just is how it is. It's like, I'm going to candlelight it, set up an altar, like get the air filters rolling, like the sound system has subs. It's very nuanced. Like we pre-made the playlist. Like everything about the space is designed so that you have the optimal experience, dimly lit. Not that other people don't do that, but I just remember there was something about this that had this quality of intention to it. I was always struck by the positive effects it had for me in making me more confident with using my voice, making me more confident with moving. I'm just more likely to burst out into freeform movement now in everyday life. But I always say it's not a one-to-one. It's not like moving freeform in class doesn't only make you more likely to move more freeform in your day-to-day life. It also makes you more likely to be more spontaneous with insight. Too, or with dialogue, but not only more spontaneous, but more clear and more precise. It's like there's the filter that colors things inauthentically isn't there as much, and now you can express core self, whatever the hell that means. So, so I'm teaching now. I've never taught movement class in my life, but that works because we're not teaching people how to dance. We're just teaching them how to
Right.
find their own movement. And because this class applies the principles of seated meditation and movement, I'm ripe for that because I've been teaching seated meditation. So you might look at me on the surface and be like, he's never taught movement. And you'll definitely get those pain points when I'm like leading the cool down and the stretch. It's a little clunky. But when I'm applying the principles of seated meditation through my spoken word to this practice, that's where I shine. So yeah, I love it. We're helping people infuse concentration to sound making and movement, wishing each other well. We're not looking at each other when we dance. It's not a social dance. I just think that's really cool. It's like, how can we make movement a concentrated practice to sharpen the mind for everyday life? It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. Michael was talking about he was talking about this back when I was still in Michigan, but I think he's always wanted to bring it to Europe at some point. Maybe not permanently, but like maybe on a I don't want to speak for him, but if you guys ever popped up in Europe, that would be pretty lit, to use an outdated term. Yeah, but sweet. I saw something also on your social media about a live synth meditation night. What as someone who would just read this without context, explain how that would work.
So I have some really good friends who have a recording studio just a little bit north of Rochester. And they actually have a record label out of there too. It's like record label distribution. They also do live sessions for YouTube. That's actually where I met them. Is I was filming and recording live sessions for musicians at their space, and this is out of someone's home. It's like a 3-floor home, but multiple rooms have been turned into recording studio areas. Wow. They have a record label called Bird Fight Records. And one of the things they do is they host this show called Candid Conversations. And it is an interview show with musicians where the musician will play like a couple songs, and then one of the people from Bird Fight will interview them about the business side of the music industry, their work, that kind of thing. We thought it would be really cool if I came in instead of a musician and treated meditation as the art, and they would do a candid conversation with me about meditation, mindfulness, creativity, and the business side of artistry. And then we would not intersperse it. We'll just front end it with a meditation with an analog synth sound bath. For anyone who doesn't know what a synth is, it's kind of like a robotic sounding instrument. But it's cool. They're like living, breathing instruments. So like they might sound different each time you play them, depending on the way you hit them. It's really cool. They got so many synths over there. And as a consumer, I've never played a synth, but as a consumer, I love the sound of a synth. We're going to be I'll lead meditation and journaling alongside synths. And I don't know when this is coming out, but we're now talking about using this concept as a pilot for an eventual talk show that I'm going to be launching at their space. Ooh. We're building a set for a talk show called the WiseMindGentleSoul Show, where it's going to be like, start with a meditation. I'll interview someone in the wellness industry. We'll have a house band, comedians and musicians playing. Like it'll be like a real live talk show. So we're making this event live studio audience as a pilot for that to have a live studio audience.
Oh, that's sweet.
So this is for their show, but come February, we're going to have a live talk show monthly at their spot.
Oh, that's sweet. You're making me miss Michigan more and more. I feel like I'm missing out on at least coming to being the live audience.
Yeah, but are you doing cool stuff where you are right now?
Am I doing cool stuff? I feel like I'm trying to do cool stuff, but it's this is one of the podcast is a way of me trying to channel wanting to do cool stuff. But I think, look, what I had in Detroit is like, I think when you're in college, you're given this like once in a lifetime opportunity to meet people who, at least to some degree, have like shared interests with you, and that's what Detroit, at least towards the end when I was in uni in college, was for me. There's a lot of people, creative people, that I was in contact with, and through contacts like Michael, like you. There's just like a lot of pulses that
Yeah.
I was exposed to that I don't no longer really have here. Having had to move back to Germany and now being in Munich. I love Munich, but it's like if you move, as you move to a new city as an adult, especially if you don't have these automatic connections that happen if you're in college or
Right.
something, it's a lot more of like an uphill battle. That doesn't or shouldn't mean that that should stop someone or me from pursuing to do cool things, but it's definitely like this podcast thing. It's a one man thing. I might be interviewing somebody, I might be recording a solo video, and also my output last year was like one video a month, one YouTube video a month, more reels, but one long form video a month. That's not a lot, So I want to kind of up my time and the production I put into this, and kind of see this as my thing, my outlet, my cool shit, or whatever your term was, thing. But it is more difficult than it used to be, like in Detroit with just friends around, and I was a lot more like immersed in the graphic design culture too, with all my peers. We would like sit and just do like drawings or something for fun. And so I do miss that aspect of having that kind of friend group that's just inherently very creative, or where it's just normal that, oh yeah, you're creating something, like whatever it might be. There's some people that are musicians, some people that are visual artists and so forth. And unfortunately, I don't really have that push anymore. But on the other hand, it's making me kind of question, what is it actually that I'm interested in? What is it actually that I'm interested in creatively? Am I really this design guy, or am I more of a different insert label guy? So that's my convoluted answer to, am I doing cool stuff?
Well, then I'll allow you to miss Michigan then, because I was going to attempt, depending on your answer to that, I was going to attempt to do a psychological reframe of, look, but you got cool stuff there. But because you're in like a searching mode, I will allow you to miss Michigan. It sounds like you had a lot of comfort in creative outlet here, and
Yeah.
you are allowed to miss it. I will allow it.
Thank you, Brennan.
Yeah.
Very, very generous of you.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you and me, kind of in the first time I tried doing the Sitting with Sam situation. I think you were actually my second guest at the time. I did some kind of solo episode, then I had my friend Maddie on, and we were just talking about all kinds of nonsense. And then you were like the first person who I was like, hey, I want to talk to Brandon about, like, I think free will was like the main thing that we kind of were chatting about. Now, this is what, 5 years ago? Almost 4 or 5 years ago?
Yes, probably 5-6 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was kind of thinking about what do I want to talk to this guy about, last time was free will. You are, in my mind, you are like a meditation guy, a spiritual guy. Also, my girlfriend was asking me, what am I going to talk to Brandon about? And I was trying to describe you in a way that makes sense to someone who has no idea who you are. But what I couldn't remember from our last conversation was, like, if we even talked about what got you interested in spirituality, if you want to call it that, in meditation, in the mind, in all of this introspection. Because most people who are interested in these things kind of have like an origin story, if you will. Maybe they grew up religious, maybe they grew up, with certain things happening that made them kind of interested in these things. What's that like for you, if you could give like a brief? Because I honestly couldn't remember when I was trying to, if I knew what made Brandon.
Yeah, well, I'm going to just pick out a few things you said, then I'm going to answer the question, and then I'm going to let you take it where you want to go. So thinking, let's define to the best of our ability some of these things that you had mentioned. So you had said, when you think of me, you think of meditation, the mind, and spirituality. So meditation, I think of as like a practice, right? Like a seated practice where we're practicing relating to our mind with more equanimity. We're basically training self to relate to thought and the heart in a different manner. Mindfulness is an extrapolation from that. It's like the result of that. It's like the act of being present. So there are mindfulness practices. When I think of for me, the interest in the mind part of Brandon, I'm thinking of like the psychology, philosophy, intellectual, which is where we've connected a lot. And then when I think of the word spirituality, I think it's a bit more amorphous and ineffable and difficult to describe. But I think of that as like the meaning, the search for meaning in life, the existential urge to feel important, to feel like there's a cause, like a cosmic cause. And then in addendum to that, my meaning for that is to grow. So like I believe there's a spirit, an ineffable spirit that inhabits this body that has like some kind of mission to grow. And so it's my job, it's self's job to address those things and to grow so that I can make my time here worth it. I would say that's one. So meditation, mindfulness, mind, spirituality, that's how I would address that. So I'm going to let you go where you want with those, but I'll start with general origin and then you can bring it together.
Perfect.
But I was always an inquisitive fella. I think it channeled out in neurosis, anxiety. I said actually when I was recording the other day, a couple weeks ago, I said, a seeker who doesn't know they're a seeker is just neurotic. And, and it's like I had all of this curiosity bouncing around, but it didn't know where to go. And it didn't have an outlet, right? It's like a comedian who can't tell a joke and they're just blurting shit out. It's like, you don't have your stage yet. Yeah. So I was just like so anxious, especially things around death.
This is when you were a teenager, or?
No, I mean, really ever since I was 5, dude. Like, I remember, I just was, now, when I was 5, was I like conscious of, a seeker isn't a seeker's that doesn't know they're seeking. No, I was just neurotic. But this is a post-hoc analysis of 5-year-old Brandon. But yeah, I mean, this endured, I didn't have a tortured childhood. I had an amazing childhood, but like, there's just this general kind of like curiosity about how people are, why they do the things they do, why our world is the way it is. Yeah. I had a very hard on her sleeve mother who, I would talk about this stuff with. But it wasn't until I was 20 years old that I got into meditation, stumbled upon a class at the University of Michigan called Contemplative Practices. And it was really a meditation and journaling class. So we would do walking meditation, seated meditation, journaling, and group conversation. That's where I got my routine that I then ended up teaching. So 20 years old, meditation class, went to a PhD in clinical psychology program to become a therapist, left that program after getting my master's, then taught meditation for 5 years in Michigan. That's when we knew each other. I was teaching meditation full time. Yep. So that's kind of, there's more to the story, but that's kind of the origin story around like from 5 to 25, the meditation, the mind. When I was 21, 22, started reading a ton of philosophy, started using that as an outlet for the neurosis, reshaped the way in which my inner world worked as a result. Mm-hmm.
But did you grow up having kind of a vocabulary for these things? Like, did you grow up, you mentioned your mom, but did you grow up religious? Did you grow up, like, because that's for me, when I talk about these things, that's immediately go back to my family is like super religious, super, like very Christian. They wouldn't say religious, they would say they're just believers. But did you have that, or?
I grew up culturally Jewish, so that would mean, kind of like holidays, I was involved in Jewish life, but in a very social way. So youth group, I was a song leader at Jewish summer camp. So it was there, but I wouldn't say religion guided any of those staples. They guided more of like a social, ritualistic type of living. There was a point in my life where I did consider actually becoming a rabbi, mid-20s when I was seeking, and like actually did delve into religion for like a year. But no, I would say, and I actually teach a lot of Jewish meditation, but no, growing up, that religion didn't give me the vocabulary. It was kind of like it was very much like my vocabulary came from psychology, philosophy, secular spirituality. And
what you said you were thinking about becoming a rabbi, what ended up not, it ended up not clicking fully, or what kind of made you not?
At the time, the reason was frankly, the reason was because I started reading a lot of books on atheism, and I just, I made like a full swing. Like at the time,
Sam Harris came to whoop you.
Seeking. It was that. It was that actually. Yeah. So, and now I'm not there. I'm in a lot more of like you know, an agnostic believer. I don't know what the hell I am, but I'm not that.
We're going to find out.
Yeah, we're going to find out through this conversation. But yeah, it was the right call not to do that for me. At the time I was teaching a lot of Jewish meditation, and my usual, at the time, hyperbolic brain was like, well, if I'm teaching lots of Jewish meditation, why don't I just become a rabbi and become the Jewish meditation rabbi? It actually would have been cool. Like, it wasn't a bad idea. But for me, I know the way I can be most of service is in clinical psychology and therapy. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you said something. You mentioned the word spirit earlier when we were talking. You said something like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you said something like, you believe that there's a kind of ineffable spirit indwelling your body or something. I actually wanted to touch on that. I had written down the word soul, but actually this distinction maybe between soul and spirit is interesting now that you brought up spirit. And let me phrase this into a question. So last time we spoke, like I said earlier, the big thing on my mind at the time was I just read a bunch of Sam Harris. I was really into like the free will question. I think that's also kind of a natural stage for anybody who has like a similar path, like me or like you. I'm sure it's like if you come from a kind of belief perspective and then you go maybe towards not atheism maybe, but agnosticism, you're gonna cross over free will. But I've made peace with that. I don't really think about that anymore. But now the question of like a soul or a spirit, I feel like is very interesting. And it's also, it's so closely tied to, if you want to define a worldview for yourself, you kind of have to not have an answer maybe to this question of if there is a soul or a spirit. But I personally struggle or think about this a lot. Is consciousness just kind of an emergent thing, or is it tied to something that lives on? Is it just a metaphor? Is it just a metaphor for being alive, aliveness? I know I'm not really throwing out a coherent question, but you can kind of see where I'm going maybe. I used to believe in souls. When I was a Christian, it was obvious you have a body, you have a soul, and you have a spirit. So it was kind of this triangle of things, but I also never really understood what the difference was supposed to be between a spirit and a soul. And now I don't know now I think spirit kind of makes sense because it's like the aliveness of a person maybe. But now when I think soul, I'm like, is that a coherent concept? Where does your mind go when I say some of these things?
Well, for me, in my head, I mean, I'm open to exploring it. I was thinking of spirit and soul interchangeably.
Okay.
Maybe soul would actually be the better word for what I was trying to articulate, but I totally see what you're saying about spirit meaning the aliveness. Like when we think of, having good spirit, it's like this, it is an aliveness. I'm such a cop-out answer, but I keep coming back to this. It's funny, Michael actually lent me Ludwig Wittgenstein's, it's like a biography, Duty of Genius book. And in there, one of his quotes, the limits of our language constitute the limits of our reality. Yeah. And it's what we're going to run into here. It does not mean we don't pursue it. But I do believe that the spiritual realm, I don't want to say it's not meant to be talked about, but it's close. It's not. The second you try articulating what it is, you're going to do it a disservice. Doesn't mean you don't do it, but I do think there's something about it that language can't. I just don't see how it can. I don't even know how you'd know. Like, you wouldn't even. You. It's not like you're gonna get ding, ding, ding. You hit it. Like no one. So. It falls short because language is really the domain of this existence. So Marshall McLuhan, says the medium is the message. As soon as, like the medium you use to describe something colors the message before the message has been received by the ears. That's why, and he meant that in the sense of like, it's a foreshadowing to TV and social media and all that. So it's like when you put something out on social media or you speak it out loud, the message is received differently because of the medium used. And I do believe that like when you're experiencing something, maybe that's what prayer is, right? It's like, it's not, you're praying in words, but you're doing it internally. When we're talking about spirituality on a podcast is much different than, for example, I turned into water once when I was meditating for 2 seconds, right? Maybe that was spirituality, right? Like now me talking about turning into water sure as hell isn't spirituality. That's ego flaunting, right? That's like, hey, I turned into water.
Aquaman over here.
Right. So, but to come back after like just laying that out, what I mean by a soul is, and again, I don't know if I believe this because it's just good for me to believe it and it gives me a good story and, it helps me behave better. But it seems to me that there's this, it's at least for me, this compulsion, this need to want to be better. That feels deeper than just being noticed. That like it feels bigger than this world. That sounds so grandiose, which is why I try and not talk about it a lot. But I don't know. There's just maybe it's a distraction from the anxiety of this world to pursue something. And, maybe it's a reaction to my fear of death to think that there's something that's impermanent, but I don't know. There's just this thing in me that feels like, what? Maybe our pain and our discomfort, maybe that is in service of showing us where we have room to grow this impermanent thing that's beyond now. That could just be a really good story and reflex to trying to give reason to suffering, because if there's not a reason for suffering, it's a pretty shitty reality to have to endure. But that's my best shot.
Hey, it's a good shot. I think you were in some kind of interview where I think at the beginning you said your favorite thing is non-fictional storytelling or something. I think that's what you're doing right now.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Not to all of it, but I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, cool.
Okay, not to maybe beat a dead horse, but I do find this question really interesting, like this religion question, because you're a meditation guy. You're not so much maybe like a religion, but I also don't want to say you're not a religion guy. But do you even care about kind of the intuitions that religious people find interesting when it comes to like life after death, or the question of God or gods? For instance, with Michael, we had a whole kind of side conversation about small g, lowercase g gods, and he has like a whole interesting take about all that.
Yeah, I know.
Do you care about these things, or are you ultimately like, look, like you said, we can't ultimately, there's no ding ding ding, we won't really know if there's a correct answer to a lot of these like metaphysical questions, so what's even the point of really diving into them or arguing about them? Maybe you're at like a post-philosophy stage where you're like, hey, we're not going to find out ultimately, so let's just meditate and be present and kind of get to know ourselves or our consciousness in the best way we can, and everything that's out there, let's leave it for the believers. Well,
I'm definitely not in a post-philosophy stage. I don't know if I'll ever be. I'm not haughty and arrogant enough now to say that I don't care or that shouldn't be talked about. I don't think I'm, as long as it's not like overtly hateful, disgusting, abusive rhetoric. Like if you want to talk about God's lowercase g, uppercase g, like talk about that. That sounds great. For me, I don't know. Like it's not something I think about much. For me, it's like I want to. think about things that I feel like are going to contribute to my day-to-day life, the day-to-day life of my loved ones. No, there could be a time and place where for you as an individual or for me as an individual, contemplating that is showing up in your day-to-day life. And that's awesome. That's beautiful. For me, that's not one of them. I am thinking a little bit about, if there's a force beyond, but it's not really kind of like the limits of our language is the limits of our reality. Like, I'm not spending a lot of time talking about things in speech that aren't around here. So I'm thinking more, like some of the things I'm thinking about more, and I'm not redirecting our interview, but I'm kind of explaining to you kind of the types of things I am thinking about is more like moral compass, moral code, values, value systems. So, for example, I might not be thinking about God's lowercase g, uppercase g, but I might think about the value of faith and surrender. And I might think about if I embodied faith and surrender, how that might inform the way I behave in the world. I'm not necessarily articulating what I'm surrendering to. That might be part of my practice, but I'm not trying to wrestle conversationally about it because I don't feel like I'm even accurately hitting on anything when I do it.
Yeah. No, I think you're pointing to an interesting distinction between faith and belief. I forget the philosopher's name. It was like a Canadian guy. I can't think of it.
Are you thinking about Daniel Dennett's Belief of Belief?
No, it wasn't Dennett. But that's also interesting. R.I.P. by the way. Anyway, it's like on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, his distinction was like between faith and belief, and the point he was kind of trying to make was belief is an involuntary attitude. It's kind of like I believe the earth is round, and it's not really something I wake up choosing to do. It's just kind of it's also like the free will Sam Harris thing. You don't choose to see a thing a certain way. It's just that's the way it is. Whereas faith, he was arguing, is a voluntary attitude, it's like a leap of faith. It's something you actually do.
I buy that. I buy that
right?
distinction. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you were reminding me with what you're saying about this distinction. Faith is kind of a practice, a practical thing, and I think this is also where then I would bucket your meditation practice and so forth. It's very much about practice, and ultimately you don't need to have all these answers to belief questions because it's just like a different bucket. That's kind of helped me. I don't know, put some order to some of these thoughts because again, growing up super religious for me, it was like everything was just in this one bucket that you either accept or reject.
Yep.
And especially kind of growing up, evangelical would not be the exactly right term, but it is kind of like the evangelical part of Christianity where a lot of emphasis is put on beliefs, things either you believe this proposition or you don't, and so forth. But really kind of seeing, hey, you can have faith even as a non-believer or even as someone who doesn't have maybe a super explicit belief that I can't clearly state, like, I believe this and this and this. You can still have a faith and a faith practice and an aim that is aimed towards something where you might not even, like you were saying, maybe I don't even know if maybe there is a force, but maybe it's nonsensical to even want to play word games regarding that. That's kind of what comes to mind for me.
Yeah, the I don't want to say it's a problem because it's not a problem to me, but the problem that quote religion solves, if you consider it solves, is it gives it a structure, it gives it a framework, it gives it a shared language for community. What we're talking about is a very individual endeavor, right? And so that is the risk, is that. And if you don't have community around your faith, you're very much in your own world. You don't have shared language around it. That's where beliefs do come to use. I like it because, I find that then I can mingle with people with different beliefs, but still have the same kind of aim, faith, but our practices are the same, like the dance meditation technique or seated meditation. So that would be, I'm playing devil's advocate with myself, but still siding with myself. That would be the thing you're missing is the community shared language.
Yeah. Speaking of aiming at things, your name, WiseMindGentleSoul, that's been around ever since I've known you. I think you've had the handle. Where did that come from? Is that something that, like, in the realm of spirituality and so forth, you're aiming for this ideal to be wise, my gentle soul? How did that come about? The name itself,
It's a
and
pretty non-flashy answer that post hoc got some meaning. But in 2017, I dropped out of clinical psych grad school. I was hanging with my friend Alex out in the balcony by the ocean in Long Beach, New York, and we were just going to start a blog of wellness writers. And I had just come out of clinical psych grad school, and I was studying Marshall Linehan's dialectical behavioral therapy. And there's this idea of wise mind in DBT therapy. And so we were like, ooh, we like wise mind. It's really cool. What should come after that? And then I just honestly blurted out, just came out of me, gentle soul. So we started this blog called Wise Mind Gentle Soul. Ended up using that name for onwards. So to be honest with you, I've never really thought about it beyond that. It just kind of always felt right. It stuck. But if we dive into it a little bit, yeah, sure. I do think that there's, in my teachings and in what I do, there's this juxtaposition between wanting to convey intellect, sharpness, like the wisdom part of the mind, with kind of this gentle surrender into maybe the more ineffable. And I do think it's the combination of the thinking mind and the surrender that actually might breed an optimal state. Now, in that name, we're probably missing something about the heart, but we can't have too verbose of a name.
yeah, wise my gentle soul. It still flows off the tongue. If
Wise
you then do
mind,
something
pure heart,
like,
gentle soul. Yeah, I don't want to become too wordy.
need to have like an inhale in between. But the show, the live shows also, you said it's going to be called the Wise Mind Gentle Soul Show. What?
It feels right. It feels right. And my buddies at the studio like the name, so we're going to rock with it.
Okay. You're recording once a month, you said? And you always...
That's the plan, unless there's demand for more. It could become as often as we want to do it. But it's going to be a production. I mean, it's going to be like a 4 or 5 camera thing, multiple mics, guests, comedians, right? Getting a live event, sponsors, food, drink. So I think once a month is going to be the way to know if it works,
Yeah. How are you going to get the live audience people? Is it going to be at the beginning, you're going to invite like friends, family, or interested?
For sure. I think anything, I learned this from doing anything. I've been hosting events for over a decade now. And if you do something good, pure, that's interesting, people will be there. So yeah, I mean, we'll start off by doing friends and family, but putting it out on Instagram and, and I say that in the least arrogant way possible. It's like, if we provide value, if we have cool guests, like think about it, if I have a guest, let's say I have a university professor as a guest, like I would think that university professor would be so interested in bringing 10 of their people to come see them be interviewed, so that stuff will sort itself out.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's cool. You're always you're always doing cool things. Like I remember your bathtub. Fuck, now the name is also, what's the name? Bathtub.
Hot tub hot takes.
Yeah. Okay. Hot tub hot takes. I never made it on there, and I'll never forgive you for it. But it was really cool. It was a really cool concept as well. Is that retired? Is that? It might make a comeback at some point. No, it's retired.
We're good. It went on for longer than it even should have.
I don't know. I enjoyed it for what it's worth. Brennan, what would you say to somebody, someone like me, who I have tried meditation here and there. I've never been very consistent with it, though. I first encountered it. I think I was first trying it actually with the Sam Harris app in like 2017, 2018, when I was like I think I was still in high school. And I really enjoyed it, but it never stuck around to the point where it really became part of my like daily routine. I had some months, some weeks here and there where I went back to it, and I always enjoyed it. I was always like, wow, like I never regretted sitting for however many minutes when watching my breath or whatever the meditation was at that moment. Whether in the beginning it was guided with someone like the Sam Harris app, or whether I just kind of sat at a bench at the park. But I'm thinking of one specific interview of kind of a meditation. I don't know if a meditation expert is a term, but he was talking about how like he was so enamored by meditation. He was so like he was vouching for it in a way where it really is kind of like deeply religious people kind of vouching for their religious practice and saying how it changes their lives, and I never really had that feeling. I can see the benefits of meditation. But on the other hand, I've never really done it long enough and consistent enough to where maybe I can even see certain benefits. Maybe I haven't seen them because I haven't really done it all the way. But how would you maybe not sell me on it? Because I don't want you to, do like a whole marketing spiel here. But maybe you can kind of paint a picture for me in a way where maybe I haven't thought about it in this way before, or maybe I'm missing something. Maybe it's not for me. Maybe it's just for certain people. Am I missing something? Am I looking at it the wrong way? Is it just not for me?
How many days consistently had you done it?
Like in a row?
Yeah.
Like maybe a week. Like I've never really.
Okay.
Like a week at a time, and then maybe a week here over the years.
Have you ever done strength training, physical strength training?
Yeah, I like to go to the gym.
What do you think would happen if you did like a week of bicep curls, took a month off, and then did a few days of bicep curls, and then stopped? Do you think you'd get? Like, would you get the kind of strength that comes from strength training?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's your answer. That's your answer. I mean, right? Like,
you need to do it.
Well, I mean, we know. I mean, we know it. We could pull out the research books. Like, it's not. This isn't.
Yeah.
This isn't It's not a mystery. You don't even We don't even need we know the changes that happen in the brain as a result of consistent practice.
What are the changes? Like, just the if you had to sell the idea to somebody, what would be where you would say, hey, if you do this consistently for like a year, you're probably gonna see maybe this or this.
Well,
because I can't even. Yeah. Would I just be calmer? Would I have less anxiety? Would I have? Yeah.
Well, often when we're talking about things like less, it means you had it in the first place. So this is going to differ from person to person, right? You keep in mind, I've worked with combat vets with PTSD. Yeah. I've worked with religious congregations. I've worked with school students. I often say with meditation, you're going to get what you need. But for example, for me to say you're going to have less anxiety, I don't even know what that means. But let's go a step further. You're going to have a greater distance between what they call the match and the fuse, right? So you're going to have you're going to have a greater distance between the initial thought and the response to the thought. Things stop becoming they stop feeling a lot more programmed. This gets into the free will shit, but Sam, it brings in this. They call it the observer of self from the balcony. If there is a such thing that can, this wise elder of the self, it appears through creating spaciousness, right? And so what we're doing in meditation is we're noticing the breath, a single point of focus, so that when we're no longer on the breath, we know it. Like we spend so much of our day distracted away from what we're intending to do. Almost our whole fucking lives are spent not doing what we're intending to do. And that's even saying if you have an intention. That's why intention is also important, because then if you're not doing what you chose to do. And so meditation is all a product of very clear marker of straying from intention. So what my teacher Martha used to say is, we're meditating, just noticing the breath. You can do a mantra like breathing in, breathing out, or breathing in, I'm a mountain, but you could also just notice the breath in and out. And then when you get a thought, you just call it thinking. It's like, it's literally just training our operating software from its default stage to like an upgrade. It's like upgrading your Mac computer to like the newest Yosemite or Sequoia shit. It's like, we didn't come out of the womb so good at that. And, just like we didn't come out of the womb like ripped, like you want to build your muscle mass, like go work it. You want to build your ability to like have more discernment and equanimity and ease with your inner world, like train it. And yeah, do it longer than a week because the mind is a muscle and it's not like, this isn't like a medication or it's not like a cup of coffee, where like you take it and you get like this like, but coffee isn't a long-term solution, is it? No, it's a short-term. And so like short-term solutions give you short-term benefits. Long-term solutions are more enduring, but they give you long-term, they show things long-term. And so the practice only shows up in the way that it's intended to. Meditation is not intended to just be like a quick hit, like meditate, and then all of a sudden you're like
enlightened.
Look, I turned into water when I meditated, right? So what?
You say yeah.
Yeah, I do. But so what? That's not why I meditate. So did that make me more loving? Did that make me more? No. What made me more discerning and loving was noticing the breath, calling a thought thinking. Now, when I have a thought in my day-to-day life, my brain has been more trained to notice it as thinking.
You don't have to believe everything you think just automatically, right? Because that's like the default, right? You think something and you, right. Right. Because that's a default, right? Because like if I'm thinking something, usually, unless I really, like you say, you there's a kind of noticing that you can get better at. If you don't, or if you aren't even aware that it's an option, it's like you buy everything that that comes up, that springs up.
And rightfully so. I said, why would you, tongue in cheek, but rightfully so, right? Like you do, and that's the shitty thing about meditation is you need to know that there's another option. And then there is a bit of leap of faith. You're like, Brandon, tell me, like, why should I spend a month? And then I'm like, well, you got to do it longer than a week. And it's like, well, why? Like, and then so now I'm telling you that you got to take it's like, it's a hard sell. It does take a certain seeker and curious person to like take that leap of faith with their time and to be willing to sit with the shit that comes up. Like for me to tell you, oh yeah, you're sitting here, you're like, I enjoyed it. Well, you're a rare bird because most people do not enjoy it. They sit and they notice all the pain in their body and they notice all the things in their mind and they don't want to do that. And so I have to sit there and tell them why they should do it anyway. And it's like, I barely even try anymore. It's like, really what it comes down to is it's like, I'm writing a book on meditation right now and it's called Meditation Isn't Relaxing. And it's trying to give people a routine. And the routine really goes over the course of 8 weeks. That's what I find is if you do this for a couple months, you'll be sold. Sold. Yeah.
Okay. I'm excited to... How far along are you in the book? Can I ask?
It's in the editing phase right now, so I have an editor coming over right now. Yeah.
Okay, so it's basically you have it written.
Yeah, like 3/4 of it.
Okay. Wow, sweet. Hey, I think I ought to read it. Maybe. Does it have like an 8-week kind of follow along plan?
It goes step by step.
Okay.
For the routine, and then with each step is an associated philosophy that I've gleaned from having
Okay.
practiced that stuff.
Wow, sweet. That should answer like most of my questions.
But here's where what I'm gonna say is, you like, I believe, I don't mean to be like a motivational speaker here, but like, you're just experiencing what's like what Stephen Pressfield calls capital R resistance. Like, you're coming up with problems that you have the answer to. Like, you knew as soon as I said, I saw it in your face. You knew it as soon as I said, is strength training work that way? And you're like,
Yeah.
no. Like,
Fuck with this.
you'll know if you do it for
Right.
longer, you'll know. And then if
Yeah.
you don't get the benefits, then screw it. Then do something else.
Do you feel do you pray, or is meditation your kind of prayer?
I don't really
Or do
pray
you even
much.
okay.
No, I mean, occasionally, if I'm feeling like got to get some words in with the higher realm, maybe. But no, meditation is definitely not my prayer. No.
Okay.
But journaling is kind of like it's like my expression of self with self. You know.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's all I need. I don't feel like, again, I need to necessarily articulate myself with anything that's not here. Sometimes just shooting the shit with myself is enough. Talking to a therapist, just talking to a friend, that's transcendent enough.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier something I found interesting. You said something. I'm not sure if you said that meditation can cause you to have like unexpected insights. There was something about
Yeah, I said that about
insight
dance
that you connected
meditation
to.
technique. Yeah.
Okay. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? I thought that was interesting. Um, what kind of insight do you, or are you thinking about a specific kind of insight, spiritual insight, just insight about one's personal life, insight of how how I may be blocking myself from achieving certain things, or maybe what kind of idea did you have when you said that? Because that stuck out to me, where I was like, what do you mean you can gain insights from just kind of observing your mind?
Well, we're having an internal narrative at all times, right? And so I think of spontaneous insight. Insight is like, I think of as like something that's more true than usual narrative. And I know you and I could go into what the hell does truth mean, and we've listened to many a podcast episodes about what truth means, but something that's more helpful or feels more real than. So it's like, okay, my day-to-day life by default, I got to do this. This person said that. I'm being wronged. I got a pain in my right shoulder. Things aren't going to be okay until I'm in a romantic relationship. But when I'm in a romantic relationship, things aren't going to be okay until I'm single again. And the moment is never okay as it is. And then you start creating this spaciousness, whether it's through things like dance meditation technique or seated meditation or getting better sleep. And I think of spontaneous insight as non-contrived, helpful thoughts. And maybe they're not even thoughts. Maybe they are. Maybe we're an antenna for the beyond. I don't know. We don't have to go there. But it's a more helpful internal narrative. And it's something that when you think it, you have this knowing that's like, yes, right? That was more helpful than the thought about needing to satiate loneliness through craving. There's something about this insight that when I put this into practice, things are right. And that's the kind of thing we're looking for and that's where, man, it's mysterious to me. What am I doing when I meditate? Am I clearing the cobwebs so that my antenna to the beyond is more in tune? Am I clearing the cobwebs and changing the way my neurons fire so that it just fires more helpful things? Am I creating a new reality, or am I just clearing the cobwebs from a reality that was already there? The philosopher Michael Singer talks about, he's like, look, we focus so much on expanding our consciousness and like reaching there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to expand. We're just so busy contracting our consciousness that when we stop contracting, we realize the helpful reality was there all along. And I buy that. So I think
Wow.
maybe the spontaneous insight is just the cessation of consciousness contraction. And then you realize you're like, oh, dude, like, I'm not saying there's not tragedy in this world. And of course there is. To be born only to die, to witness war. No, it's horrible.
Yeah.
Of course. But I mean, the snowfall, the blade of grass, the fact that we can converse right now, like the preciousness of this moment is
Mhm.
almost too beautiful to bear. It is too beautiful to bear. That's why we contract. So meditation is a
Mm.
training of being okay with the sheer overwhelming beauty and tragedy of existence.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, because it is just a noticing, right? It is. I feel like it
That's it.
maybe it just it helps you be okay with things because that's ultimately what it is, right? You're just aware of. And I'm speaking just out of my ass because I don't meditate so much, but it is right the noticing of things. Like when I think about the times that I have meditated, it's like you close your eyes, you want to focus on your breath, and all of a sudden there's a thought, and all of a sudden you're thinking about something, and you for a second you forgot that your initial task of focusing on the breath,
That's right.
and me not having done it so much, but having done it maybe a little bit, it is very crazy, like this internal narrative, just the weight that it has, and the claim for truth also that it has. You said we don't have to get into truth, and we don't. But it is interesting, right? That it fields our perception, my perception. If I don't question it, it or insofar as I don't question it, it automatically is like the Lord's word is truth. It's what I perceive is true because I can see it, I can perceive it, I can think it, and having some distance. I can see how it would be helpful in day to day, and how it would be helpful in maybe discerning between truths or falsities or things that are helpful or not helpful. What would you to maybe have a part B to this question? How would you sell this to someone? What would you say to people? Because I'm thinking I have some friends who are maybe like very politically active. Specifically, I'm thinking of two friends in Michigan. I love them a lot, and a dynamic in our friendship has always been I am, even though yes, I'm interested in politics, just because I just find it interesting. But I'm more of I like to talk about what we talk about.
Mhm.
And then my friends who I'm referencing, they are very into politics because they feel like they have a kind of internal morality
Yep.
where they feel like their political activism is kind of a necessity because they're like, hey, we're in such a privileged position. We're in this
Yep.
country. We have some voices. We have influence over our friends, even if we're not like famous people. But to them, kind of speaking about and being engaged in politics and so forth is kind of what they think they should be doing.
Yeah.
Whereas me, also in college, I was always more like, you can't really change the world anyway. Let's talk about
Mm.
philosophy. Let's.
Mm.
How would you maybe sell something like introspection or meditation or faith practice in general, which kind of has a very inward tone? How would
Yeah.
you maybe sell is the wrong word, but there are people who are more worried about the external world, who are looking at Venezuela, the US, like all this like shit happening, the politics
Mm.
all the time. There's so much going on outside. And it almost feels, when I speak to them, it almost feels like they have a guilt when it comes to,
Mm.
hey, just relax. Just, you can't fix everything.
Mm.
Maybe take a step back and take a breath or something is what I want to say to them. Yeah, maybe what words would you have to someone who is so focused on the outside, not as an act of like maybe trying to avoid the inside, but just as an act of moral duty or something like that?
Well, I think that person and me would have a lot to teach each other. I think there's a lot of nuance in this question. And I'm going to sort through it. It's a very complicated and it's a fantastic question. I actually think it's very important. And I'm going to do my best to say things that I think are true. But I think that we will only know how to best act in the world if we're actively tending to our inner landscape. Now, I'm going to consistently devil's advocate myself here because I think it's important. The devil's advocate to that is you can't predicate acting in the world on having finished doing that introspection, because you'll never finish doing that introspection. So they do need to be simultaneous endeavors. I believe you really can't effectively change the external world if you're not tending or curious about your own inner landscape, because you learn a lot about how the mind and heart works in others by tending to the self. I believe that's one of the reasons we have self-awareness, is to be able to empathize with others through loving kindness through our own internal curiosity. So that, I do believe, needs to be a prerequisite. Now let's do a thought experiment, though hyperbole. Like, let's say someone has no housing, no shelter, no money, and they just need their circumstances changed now, right? There needs to be a certain hierarchy of needs for Maslow to be able to have what your friends might call, rightfully so, the privilege of introspection and spiritual exploration, which is shelter, funds. Now, you can make the argument that even Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning was able to spiritually introspect. Fair enough. But I do think the endeavor to make sure that people have their basic needs met before encouraging them to introspect is great. But the people looking to fix that issue, if their needs are met, they can introspect. So, politics are a very necessary and useful mechanism to make people's lives work better. I mean, it's how societies function. It's, how wealth is distributed or not distributed. It's how people get their health care. It's how infrastructure is built. It's how public policy is made that dictate what people can and can't do, from a social and financial angle. So I do think it's very important that we're civically engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on, and that we are working to form beliefs simultaneous with tending to our own inner world, so that when we are expressing that into reality and trying to create the world, we're not creating a world that's coming from our own anger and neurosis and, trying to, rather it's coming from a place of, I understand this, and now I'm going to purely express it out into the world. So I that's what I would say to that person is, hey, continue your civic duty. Ideally, it's not coming from a place of guilt and shame. I do think things that are driven by guilt and shame aren't as pure as things driven by a state of abundance. To do your best to maybe, let that be the initial motivator, but not let that be the enduring, motivation. But no, I do think shying away from what's happening, I've done it, is a bit of a cop-out. Now, at the same time, with the advent of social media and seeing everything that's happening everywhere at every point, there's an impossibility to that too. Yeah. Like, can you tend to the state of blank country while you're tending to the state of this country, while you're tending to your community, while you're tending to your core nuclear family unit, while you're dealing with your job? No, you cannot, right? Mm-hmm. Now, you can form a belief about it and let that inform who you vote for, and you can pick some issues that are core to your, how you volunteer and what you go and advocate for and canvass for sure. But can you fix everything at one point? No. And that is where social media has, I think, jaded us a bit, is where I don't think we were ever meant to know everything all at once. Yeah. Devil's advocate is, well, why not know everything? It's like, well, okay, then if you're going to know everything, then you got to tend to your inner landscape to be able to deal with knowing everything, because that will fucking stress the living daylights out of you. So that's the long answer is I think dispositionally everyone's going to have a different inclination. Not everyone is going to be a protester out on the street for blank issue. I do think we'd all benefit from some level of civic knowledge and engagement because it is the way that our societies function, but we're all going to have different dispositions whether we tend more towards the inner landscape or more towards the outer world.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the nuance and how you're answering this too, because it's hard, it's impossible to give a blanket answer to people. You know, like you said, everybody is different. In the beginning, you said, you know, people maybe aren't so much a product of their environment as some people say. So I like the individualism in your worldview. Brandon, you're doing a lot of shit. You're starting a live show. You're finishing your book. I see you appear on social media in various places. What, maybe in closing, what gives you the motivation to be so creative? Do you have to be creative to feel fulfilled? Do you maybe, yeah, so what comes first? It's like a chicken or the egg kind of situation, maybe, or a question. Are you doing all these creative products to feel fulfilled, or what gives you the motivation to do them? What gives you the drive? And also, how do you see 2026 going? Like, besides the project that you're doing, in your business-wise or in your life, just kind of, do you have anything that you're striving for, or that's really motivating you, something you're aiming at?
Well, I think play, after reading Camus' Myth of Sisyphus, like play is like a really important part of my life, getting to take things seriously and not seriously at the same time. To me, creativity is like the most fundamental form of play. I have every morning when I wake up, I have this, I don't necessarily want to call it compulsion, but I do have this need to express myself in an abstract way while communicating a clear sentiment. And so that's always what I've tried to do with creativity. I also see it as a great way to socialize. To me, creating feels like a play date. It's like we're making something that's expressing our own unique essence. Look, a lot of people have made late night talk shows. A lot of people have written books, but I do believe that creativity is a rare form of getting to express yourself very uniquely. I also feel like I have stuff to say. I like being heard, but also people's lives seem to benefit when they hear what I have to say. They self-report. So I feel like it's like a win-win. I get pleasure from expressing myself, and people benefit from hearing me. Not that people benefit from, some of my, more avant-garde shows. I don't know. Maybe they were fun. But like, I'm talking about like the very like earnest psychology stuff. So yeah, no, I make these things because I feel like I got stuff to say. I derive pleasure from doing them, and people seem to benefit. In terms of what 2026 is going to bring, just continuing to notice my pain points in my own self and face them head on. I'm thinking a lot about like not shying away from pain or psychological discomfort and feeling it in the heart, and letting things move through me rather than like put a lid on them. And just continue to work on creative projects, continue to tend to relationships, to be loving and kind, but still honest with my word in doing so, to continue to take care of my body and mind. And yeah, no, it's not like there's no major lofty resolution ambitions. It's very much like let's continue daily trying to take the next best step.
What's if I want to sit in on a meditation thing with you, would the next thing be like the pilot, the live synth?
Yeah, right now it would be, yeah. It's also going to be live streamed, so you can. I don't know if you'll be awake, but it'll also be.
What time is it?
It would be at like 7 p.m. Eastern, I think. You're not going to be awake. Yeah.
Might be
but
right. Okay.
It'll be up in perpetuity after that.
Okay.
And then every month we're going to do a meditation before the interview as a part of that live show. So yeah, if you were trying to gracefully market me as a meditation teacher to your audience, that would be the way. But if you're asking me, I can always talk you through a routine, and you can start meditating.
Oh shit! Maybe we'll have a sitting with Sam, or Brandon Klein is teaching meditation, sitting with Sam 101.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do a little live meditation.
Okay.
You can. Yeah, I mean, I always say the best podcast episodes as an interviewer are the ones that are selfishly driven. So.
I agree. I would be down. Brandon, if people want to find you, Wise Mind, Gentle Soul, right? Or how do you want to plug yourself?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Wise Mind Gentle Soul on Instagram, wisemindgentlesoul.com on the web, but on the
link
Instagram
tree,
are all my
right?
links. What's up?
Yeah. No, I was just saying you have a link tree on your Instagram. Everything else, right? Links to.
Yes, it is. Yes, the link that sends you to more links.
Yeah. All right, sweet. Well, Brennan, it's a pleasure to see you. Like I haven't seen you, I think since before you moved to California. I saw you on Instagram every now and then, so it feels like less time than it's actually been.
Yeah.
But I do miss you. Even talking to Michael, talking to you, is kind of pulling me back into the good people and times we've maybe shared together back in Michigan. But thank you for coming on to Sitting with Sam.
Of course.
Thank you for talking a little bit about meditation, about spirituality. Maybe we'll get to do this again. Maybe next time you'll be my instructor.
However often you want to do it, you just let me know. This is
Sweet.
lovely.
Thank you.